right. Howdy, nail peoples. Hopefully, this is working. I have a new program. It is streaming on both platforms at the same time. I'm currently using my laptop camera, which sucks, but I can't find my external camera. In the middle of packing and moving. When I find that, the video quality will be a lot better, but hopefully the microphone quality is good because I am using an external mic. Um, so hopefully you guys will be able to see this. It would appear that it is up as I'm looking at the Nails Over Coffee page right now. Yeah, it looks like we can all be here. So, welcome everybody. Nails Over Coffee 104, if my counting is correct, on the reboot. If you are watching on Facebook Live, be sure that you like the page. If you are watching on YouTube, hi Shanna, then please be sure to subscribe because that helps me out. When I get over 1,000 subscribers, I get the ability to do some other cool things. This also appears to be kind of a workaround to the subscriber count thing for using mobile. So as soon as I get the StreamYard app into my phone, I might just use my phone because I like being able to be on the go. Okay, today's coffee cup is Aloha Mickey Mouse. It's just blank on the other side. And then it's got some groovy little stuff on the inside. He's got a little Mickey head. And this coffee cup has a story. It was a gift to me from one of my friends who was/is a client. Shannon says hers is Spider Gwen today. And I'm on a Wi-Fi in my house that sucks. So sorry about that. Hopefully this won't hitch too bad. This came from Disney's Aulani Resort in Hawaii, where my equally Disney fanatical friend Sam picked it up for me. So thanks, Sam. Featured on a Nails Over Coffee. Okay, so today's Nails Over Coffee is inspired by a conversation that I was having on a Facebook friend's post. And the Facebook friend, I'm pretty sure I gathered from the verbiage and the discussion in the post that I think she's in the UK. Which, for those of you who aren't familiar, the people in the UK, like their training and requirements and licensing and everything are significantly different than we are here in the States. They have training levels because it seems like, all right, Kate, get your coffee. It seems like because our programs are administered by state, and of course, in the United States, we can't get all 50 states to agree on anything. So they're all different between states and different jurisdictions. And it seems like the UK might be like a whole UK thing. And it has like level 1 and level 2 and level 3 training. And there's different things you are licensed to do. And so there's different requirements. So just making sure that I keep that in mind, like as I'm commenting on something. So she had discussed that she was watching a video and the person doing the video was saying to prepare the natural nail with a 150 grit file. And she was expressing how horrible that was, like how awful and damaging that was. And that was mirrored by pretty much all the comments below. Was everybody going, "Oh my God, you could file a hoof with that," and you know, and all that. And so I, of course, being me, had to chime in with my experience. And um, my experience is, yes, 180 grit, Shannon, would definitely be softer in comparison, and 100 grit would be rougher in comparison, right? And so I had to chime in and say, okay, I understand how, based on what product you use, that might be your thing, your perception. I can tell you just from my personal experience that I have used a liquid and powder brand for 27 years now, 28 years, that manufacturer's instructions are to, and I quote, using a 100 grit file, etch the nail in the direction the nail grows until you've removed the shine from the nail. It's a methacrylic acid primer system. And as I'll discuss when I kind of go through the rest of it later, here in a minute, that's, my manufacturer's instructions. So, sorry, bump the table. The person that, and she's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if she wants me to. So I didn't ask, so I'm not going to. But she and I know her personally. So she popped in and was kind of like, nope, can't do this agree to disagree with you thing. Doug Schoon has been very clear on the topic that, we don't need and shouldn't cause that kind of damage to the nail plate. And anybody who is using a product that is either old technology or they are too aggressive. And so, no, I'm not going to agree to disagree on this one. And I was kind of like, and that's why I call it a discussion, not a debate, because neither one of us were walking away. There was no chance either one of us were walking away from this conversation having changed our mind. So it was a discussion, not a debate. But I was like, not, as I stated, like above all else, you have to follow manufacturer's instructions, because if something happens and you get sued, your insurance company is going to want to know whether you were using the product as directed to use it. And so that's why it's really important to use manufacturer's instructions. And let's discuss damage. And so we went back and forth with the both of us kind of explaining our point, and she has a valid point. Anything that you use on top of the nail plate is causing damage if it's abrasive. I mean, that's a fact, right? And there is a risk of overexposure from any chemicals that we use. And that can create damage. And how we, hi, Kate. And how we treat the skin around the nail plate, to use the technical terms, the eponychium, the hyponychium, the actual cuticle, whether we remove that cuticle with a solvent or whether we remove that cuticle mechanically, either by a pusher or by a tertium stone, or a stone, a cuticle stone. I guess shouldn't say tritium, um, or whether we're using an electric file with a specialized cuticle bit, So there's lots of things, right, that we do that can cause damage. And so my whole point is that there's a difference between damage and acceptable damage. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. So if you're watching on the live stream, you can totally comment. I can see your comments. If you're watching after the live, you're watching the replay, feel free to comment still. I'll get a notification. We can talk about it in the comment section. But for me, it's like if a um, if a client is desiring to have artificial nail enhancements, right? Then we as technicians should have already had a conversation with them about damage, that anything we put on that's intended to be a product that we fill in as opposed to remove and replace is going to cause some damage. Some damage with the big like D, damage. There will be damage. There will be some degree of preparation to the nail plate. There will be some degree of dehydration and cleansing. There will be product that by its very nature goes into the top couple layers of nail plate to help grab the product on. So if they're going to wear artificial nails, there is going to be a degree of damage. Now it gets a little hazier with gel polishes and things like shellac and stuff like that, because while they are meant to be removed, some brands do have you buff the shine off the nail plate, whereas some very clearly do not. They just want you to use the cleanser to dehydrate and get the oils off. And then, of course, with traditional nail lacquer, there shouldn't be any need for buffing. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't have to. And if there's ridges, you should be able to use ridge filler and those kinds of things. So, but even with gel polish, right? I mean, if we choose to use a gray foam buffer, right, to kind of give us a nice canvas for it, then that in fact is also causing damage. So my point was acceptable damage. And to me, that's really subjective, because I compared it to like the cuticle thing, I compared it to hair, right? I talked in an episode the other day, like we all know if you put bleach on your hair and you leave it on for too long, you're going to turn your hair to mush and it's going to melt and fall off, right? We all know hair color, if there's any level of lift used or peroxide volume, there's obviously different levels of damage between strengths, 10 volume, 20 volume, 40 volume, right? But how hair color works is it works by opening up the pores in your hair and depositing something or removing something and then hopefully closing them back down again, right? So that's damage. But there's different levels of damage, right? And it's up to us as professionals or hairstylists, is the example I'm using, to look at somebody's hair and go, okay, I can't bleach your hair. If I bleach your hair, you're going to have too much damage, right? You're going to have some breakage. You're going to have whatever. Um, what acceptable damage is, right? Um, because even just depositing hair color gives you some damage, right? So, so I think that I don't know. So to me, I guess, yeah, and I admitted it. Yeah, my product is old technology. You bet. It was technology that was invented in 1984. Absolutely. I do not dispute that at all. But what I also know is that when we remove my clients' nails, they're not trashed. I can soak their nails off and do a manicure and put polish on them. And other than they have a higher water content, but as all nails do when you take off a covering, um, so they are more flexible for that like first little while. But they harden back up by the end of the day as the water evaporates out of the nail plate. Um, but there's no excessive damage, what I would consider to be outside of acceptable damage. And I prep the nail with a 100 grit file. In fact, it's a really rough 100 grit file. It's a purple Terminator is what it's called. And the grits are actually sharp. They're pointed as opposed to rounded grits on like a finishing file, because it is designed to put huge scratches in the acrylic, liquid and powder. And and then yeah, it does create these um and the reason why you use it in the direction the nail grows is because all nails have, whether you can see them or not, natural ridges, hills and valleys from where it grew out. And so these little sharp pointy grits in the direction of the nail growth, they get down into the ridges. If you go across, you're smoothing the ridges out. And so maybe that's the difference, is that I'm not thinning the nail plate as dramatically because I'm going with the natural grow out. But when I do an acrylic gel hybrid, a polygel type product, I use 180 grit file because that's what they recommend. Um, when I'm doing gels, I use 180 grit file because that's what they recommend. Um, when I'm doing gel polish, I use a gray buffer. Um, and when I'm doing traditional lacquer, I make an attempt not to have to buff at all. So it just depends on what's going on with the client's nails. But um, so again, it's that following manufacturer's instructions, right? So Nail Candy Kate here has put up a comment that says, remember when she had her dad on to talk about insurance and liability? That was years ago. It was so years ago. Although it's still up on the archive page. Um, the legality sure hasn't changed since then. In fact, insurance companies are even more strict now. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would agree. It says I can put this up on screen. I'm kind of wondering. I'm going to try that. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if this works. There it is. Look there. So see, there's sometimes some kind of cool stuff with like technology. So yeah, this is Kate saying that, yeah, and she did a episode for me filling in one time, and she had her dad on and they talked about insurance and liability. I'll go back and see if I can find it and put the link in the comments here. But see, then look, I can make the comment go away. This is so fun. So Shanna agrees, says manufacturers' instructions are key. There is over filing too, but that's where the damage could come into play. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? I'm really digging this, being able to put the comments up on the screen. So right. Okay. So now that we know I can put your comments up on the screen, which is exciting. Um, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, right? Because, like I said, to me, there's a difference between damage with a capital D. We can have damage from shellac removal. There was a discussion years ago about how no matter what you do, whether you're like not scraping, you're doing everything exactly as is directed by the manufacturer, and that you still get some of this white delamination on the natural nail, especially if the person goes longer than the 10 to 14 days with the shellac on their nails, right? Because it's supposed to be the power polish, not like other gel polishes. They have a different like gig, right? Um, so that's causing damage, right? And so discussing the acceptable level of damage. So what do you guys, my marker of acceptable level of damage is if I look at a client's nails, and first of all, if their nails are too thin or too smooth or whatever, I'm going to recommend they don't wear enhancements anyway, because we know that they're going to have lifting. We know that they're not going to hold, right? Because there's nothing for the enhancement of any kind to grip onto without us very aggressively giving it something to grip onto, which then is damage with a little d that I think is too much damage with a big D. So, first of all, I'm not going to put nails on somebody who their nails are either too thin naturally, too compromised, to whatever. That being said, most of the time, the reason why people are wearing enhancements is because their natural nails aren't great and they don't have the patience or desire to do all the at home work to help them be stronger and more durable. But even at that, we know, because we know the anatomy, that they're still limited um, by how many nail cell manufacturing plants they have, right? Um, we know that you can't make a nail thicker. It's as thick as it's going to get. You can make it healthier. So the nail cells coming out are healthier. And so they um, tend to last a little better, which they have more longevity to them, which means that the nail is going to seem to be thicker, but it's not actually thicker. It just seems that way. So we know, right? Like we know that's, I mean, at least anybody who's a professional should know, right? And so I don't know. I have like I have the conversation with my client and I say, okay, there's going to be some damage with a little d, right? Um, your nails are fairly healthy, so I would assume the damage would be minimal. Um, You can do your part by getting your maintenance done regularly, by not picking at anything, by using your nails, like jewels, not tools, so that you don't have any breakage that damages the nail plate or the nail bed. I mean, that's the client's kind of responsibility in that situation. Um, so I don't know, like, so to me, I define acceptable damage by when we remove their product, that their nail is essentially functionally no worse off than it was when we put the product on. And when I say functionally, because we know that we have caused some mechanical damage, but was it mechanical damage that was enough to compromise what their nails were like to begin with? So that's my definition for damage. And the bottom line is my old technology, if it ain't broke, don't fix it product that I love to use. And I have over the years, I mean, you guys know, you've watched me. I try everything I can get my hands on because I'm looking for another option. Maybe there's a product that I like using just as much as this one that holds up just as well as this one on my clients, but has less damage, right? So I keep trying them all, but the bottom line is this is the product that I like using the best, and it holds up on my clients, and it doesn't have a unacceptable level of damage to me, I guess. Yeah, we're gonna move you guys down a little bit. There we go, because I want to lean. So okay, so we have the comments up here. I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think. Oh, you guys can't see my little sign. Look, see, it says "Be kind." So I think that's good advice for everybody. So yeah, so although that makes my camera do funky things, so we better turn this back forward. So yeah, so I am interested in hearing what you guys have to say. If you're here right now, if you can chime into the comments, that would be fantastic. And I will put your comment up on the screen. If you are watching later on in replay, please also put your definition. Like, how do you determine what an acceptable amount of damage is for your client's nails or toes, for that matter? I mean, right? When we're doing pedicures, there's a discussion, there's a whole host of people who say that you can't use liquid and powder enhancements on toenails because it's too rigid. And if they like bash their toe into something, it could damage their nail plate, right? And while there may be some truth to that, again, that hasn't been my practical real world experience. And I also like how rigid liquid and powder is when I'm helping grow out a toenail that tends to ingrow. If it's ingrown and infected and all that kind of stuff, then I can't do anything with that. I got to send them off to get that taken care of. But I've had a lot of people over the years that I'm like, okay, you need to go to the podiatrist or the dermatologist, and you need to get them to numb your toe up and get that cut out and get you on some antibiotics or whatever it is they want to give you to take care of that. But do not allow them to put the shot in your nail eponychium matrix to kill off the nail cells so it won't grow back. Because before we have them do that, I want to try to see if we can get it to grow out without doing that. So tell them you don't want that. but you need to go get that taken care of first. And so then once they come in and there's no, because we can't work on something that's got signs of infection or those types of things, open skin, it's just not a good idea. Even if you could, it's just not a good idea. Regardless of the fact that it's outside the scope of our license, it's just not a good idea. I've got 27 years and I've dealt with a lot of things, and there's still just some stuff you just don't do, right? And so, but liquid and powder, I've used it on toenails for years, especially to help guide someone's nail past that point of that puffy skin in a manner that's dull. I can make the rounded edge of the enhancement really dull, so it pushes past the skin without digging into it, and it drags the natural nail with it. And then after that, if we never let it go further back than where that end of the nail fold is, then it doesn't ingrow anymore. But that being said, there's times where I'm wanting to do something that's going to require more skin contact, building out a nail where maybe there's only like half of a nail there, half of a toenail there, in which case a product like Barefoot Pedic, the products that are designed to not be damaging to skin contact, because we don't want overexposure if we can avoid it. But to me, that's even, if I'm doing that on toenails, that's potentially damage, when we're removing calluses from someone's foot, it's possible you put a skin softener on there, right? And so then you use a scrub or a foot file you've used a chemical softener to soften the callus, and then you use a physical abrasive, whether that be a scrub or a foot file or both, to reduce and smooth the callus. But sometimes the chemical skin softener will actually soften more than we would really want to remove of the callus. I mean, we really shouldn't be removing any more than about 50% at the most of a callus, because calluses are there to protect the underlying structure, right? The callus is built up there because it's protecting the bone or whatever's underneath that callus. It's protecting it. And so if we take it all off, you end up with sore feet and bone problems, cracking skin, those kind of things. So, but that's where we're trying to improve something without making it worse than it was. And so I don't know. I guess, like I said, I define damage as something that is not long lasting. It's appropriate to an expected degree with the service, and then it doesn't have a lasting impact. So, okay, so we have a chime in here. So Shannon says, even doing nails for a nail biter because they're having an issue with tips being glued on. In order to get a form underneath, you have to build the ledge first before you put the form on. And yes, the product is coming into contact with the skin to build it, but it actually works. That's true. So I think to comment about that, because I have definitely done my fair share of nail biter nail applications. I think part of the key is that following manufacturer's instructions, right? And being very vigilant about the exposure. So, or the damage with a little d. So, if you properly prepare the nail plate, then in theory and in practice, if you're doing it right, that natural nail plate should never need to be prepared again. You're only doing it once. So you're not using a 100 grit file on the nail plate every 2 weeks. You're using a 100 grit file on the nail plate one time to get the acrylic to adhere to it, and then never again because it doesn't lift and it doesn't come off. And so then it's just the new regrowth that you are again using that to do it. And I think it's the same concept with the idea of overexposure. So unless someone is incredibly sensitive already, the exposure to liquid monomer on the skin one time in order to get that little teeny tiny fake nail bed on there so that you can sculpt out the rest of the nail around that little hard lump of skin that most nail biters have, that the tips that just pushes off tips. So that's why you can't use tips. I mean, in a perfect world, we would just put some enhancement on just their little short, nubby, natural nail to give it the strength to push past that skin. But let's face it, most people, that's not what they're looking for. So that exposure, that teeny tiny little bit of exposure to me, is very small in comparison to having a sloppy application where you are slopping monomer all over their skin on all 10 nails, on every fill, on every service. That's a whole different level of overexposure than just this little tiny bit of skin contact that's happening one time to be able to do the good that's going to come out of the rest of the service being done properly, which is you're going to have proper prep. You're going to not have to do it again. It's going to grow out as soon as it's hardened. It's inert. Remembering that liquid and powder is the same thing that is used in dentures and some joint replacements and artificial joints and plexiglass, and that once the product is hardened, it's inert. Once it's fully cured, it's inert. So the key is to not overexpose during the time period that it's wet. There's a fly in here. Oh my God, it's making me crazy. I can hear it. Zzz. I don't know. Maybe if I'm quiet, even you guys can hear it. Oh, now I got all quiet. But this new microphone of mine is really sensitive. So yeah, again, so now we're talking about acceptable damage, acceptable overexposure, having the consultation with our client to let them know what's happening. Like, so we know, we're educated, and we know how to explain it to them. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to that, what we talked about last week or the week before about think it was last week, about us not doing a good enough job explaining to clients what can go wrong in the wrong hands, with the wrong training, with no training, um, why it's dangerous to use some of these products at home. If you are going to use them at home, how to use them at home safely. That we as an industry haven't done a great job of getting that kind of like public service announcement out there. I mean, I'm just waiting to hear all of the fallout here in a year or two from the Nail Boo, which I think it's Paris Hilton. I think it's her brand of, it's basically a dip nail for people to do on themselves. It's a consumer dip nail. Because if not properly activated and properly cured, there's going to be residual cyanoacrylates in there that are going to cause a sensitivity. And let me tell you what, cyanoacrylate is not the acrylate you want to have a sensitivity to. I mean, that's, oh my God, it's used in so many adhesives. Like that's not the one. So, anywho, so yeah, please let's let this just be the beginning of the discussion. Let's get a lively discussion going in the comment threads on this video, because and I will expect everyone to behave. I do allow language. I do not allow bullying. I do not allow being outrightly rude and critical to people. So yeah, Shannon says she has allergic reactions to medical tape and band-aids, right? You know, I mean, people have all kinds of different overexposure, contact dermatitis type reactions. So yes, let's keep the conversations going in the comment threads on this video, on the platforms. Maybe next week or the week after, we can have a follow-up where I can bring some of that, some of those, into the conversation. Kate says Nail Boo. I want to look that up. And these celebrities aren't wearing the products themselves. No, that's totally true. Yeah, look up Nail Boo. It comes up on my Instagram feed all the time. It's little like reels of them, dipping the nail into the powder, which doesn't matter that they're dipping it into the powder because it's their own product. It's not a communal thing like us as a service, So yeah, so check that out. Like I said, it's basically a celebrity took a dip nail product and packaged it and branded it under their own name and released it, and it has sold a ton. Shannon also says that she can't touch the peel off brand polishes that have which I'm assuming adhesives in there. So yeah. Shannon, can you use the it's like an athletic wrap? They use it for kinesiology stuff sometimes. Also, if you get your blood drawn and they don't put a Band-Aid on you, they put like a cotton ball on it and then they wrap like around your arm. We used to use it, or I used to use it when I was working 40 or 50 hours a week in the salon. I use new files because I use a peel and stick file system. So I use new files on everybody. And so it used to just destroy my fingers. So I would wrap my fingers with the stuff. It sticks to itself so that it would shred that and not my skin. Shanna says she can't have that either. End up turning red and itchy. Oh my God. Do you wear gloves for everything? I mean, I would hope, oh my gosh, if you have contact dermatitis like that, I would hope that you would wear gloves. I hate wearing gloves. Although I've gotten more used to it over the years, but I really only like the pink pearl nitrile gloves because they're really, really tight and they hold up to the chemicals. They're kind of hard to come by now since COVID. Maybe I don't work full time anymore, so I haven't needed any for a while. So maybe if I go look, I can find them now much easier now that we're out of COVID. I mean, trying to find gloves in the aftermath of COVID was just gloves and masks, and because I wear a dust mask when I'm using my e-file, because it's kicking dust straight up in your face, even with a dust extractor. There's still some degree of dust. And so so when we all had to wear masks for COVID, like, it didn't bother me because I already put one on to use my e-file since 1997. So, yeah, Shannon says, yes, only wear nitrile gloves, can't have powdered gloves either. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. A lot of people are sensitive to powdered gloves, and I get that it's supposed to be like to make your hand fit in there better and to like absorb the sweatiness in there. But to me, that is kind of the problem. It creates an irritation because the sweating actually helps your skin not dry out, and like you dry out more from the powder. Anyway, that's been my experience. So I don't wear powder gloves, and I don't have any like latex or vinyl or any type of allergies, but I just find the nitrile gloves hold up better to the products that we use. So, okay, well, we've been on here for 45 minutes now. So I'm going to go ahead and let y'all go for this Monday. Cheers with the coffee. Again, please subscribe, please like the page, and please, I mean, I'm actually asking you to please comment below with your take on what is acceptable damage to a client's nail plate in providing a service. Maybe chime in with, you don't have to give the name of your product if you don't want to, but chime in with what grits of preparation you use for what services. Let's have a conversation about this, because I think, as much as I love Doug, and I do love Doug, and he's done a huge amount scientifically for our industry, and he's been a great spokesperson, but I think there's a difference. This is where Doug and I argue all the time. I think there's a difference between scientifically or medically the effect of something and the practicality of the effect of something from the artist's perspective and what we're doing. And so, like I said, I can agree that scientifically we are, by any exposure, we're causing overexposure, right? Because zero exposure is preferable scientifically. No damage scientifically is okay. It's all damage. But what's an acceptable level of damage for what we are trying to accomplish? And so, hey, Doug, if you happen to see this, feel free to chime in the comments too. If you want to talk about it, we can, now that I've got this groovy new platform, I can split screen and we can stream you on and we can talk about it live. And if there's anybody who wants to talk about it live, any product manufacturers who've seen this, who've heard this, and want to have a conversation with all y'all and with me about your take on damage. Like, I know that Dazzle Dry was designed out of an objection to no amount of UV exposure is acceptable. And Doug talks about how the UV lamps that we use for our nail products are safe. And they are safe, but they are still exposing to UV. That's what they're doing. That's how the product works. And so in this particular example, Doug is actually more liberal with the use of the UV light than, say, Dr. Valenti is with exposure from using gel polishes. And and UV light. She designed Dazzle Dry because she thinks no amount, having the whole skin care aesthetics type background thing, she thinks that no amount of UV exposure is acceptable. And so she made a product that doesn't need it, but holds up a lot like shellac. So I'd love to hear, like, this is a big thing we can talk about a lot and often, and probably should. So please feel free to, Shanna says there's always exposure, either minimal or massive. That's true. Kate says that she gets her gloves from Medline. I think they're the manufacturer of Pink Pearl, and their customer service is fantastic. Cool. In fact, I'm going to pop that up here on the screen because I want everybody to see that. Getting gloves from Medline. So yeah, well, I'll go check that out too. And if I can find a good link, then I'll pop it in the comments below or in the description to the video. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining today. Please jump in on the conversation here. Let's get a conversation going. As you all know, I got no problem debating with somebody about it because I'm a nerd and I have to know all the things. So yeah, let's do this. So thank you for joining me today. Cheers, aloha with the coffee, and I will see you next Monday at noon, and I'll see you in the comment section. All right, ciao, peoples.